At 68, Vince Gill has finally spoken openly about the two women who shaped his life the most, his first wife, and the woman who became the true love of his life. For decades, fans have speculated, filling in the blanks with rumors, assumptions, and their own interpretations of his heartfelt songs. But now, the truth is clear, not through scandal or whispers, but through the way Vince himself reflects on his journey. A story of heartbreak, resilience, faith, and enduring love. Vince Gill is a name synonymous with country music greatness. With a voice that could break your heart and a guitar that could lift your soul, he became one of the most celebrated musicians of his generation. But behind the trophies, the Grammys, and the sold-out arenas, there was a man living through the same struggles that many ordinary people face. The strain of marriage falling apart, the challenge of raising a daughter amid fame, and the longing to find a partner who would truly understand him. His story reminds us that even legends stumble, even icons hurt, and even the brightest stars must walk through shadows before finding their light again. For years, people wonder what really happened in his first marriage. Why did a love story that began with so much promise come to an end? What was the role of his rising fame, his relentless touring, and the personal sacrifices demanded by a career in country music? And then came Amy Grant, America's beloved Christian music star. Their paths crossed, and soon their friendship grew into something deeper. But with that came controversy, questions, and the spotlight of public judgment. Still, what unfolded was not a tabloid scandal, but a story of two people who discovered in each other the missing piece of their hearts. In this journey, we'll follow Vince from his humble beginnings in Oklahoma, through his first marriage with Janis Oliver, his painful divorce, and the new chapter he created with Amy Grant. It's not a story of secrets exposed, but of a man choosing love and honesty at every stage of his life. This is the real Vince Gill, the husband, the father, the artist, and the man who finally explains what really happened with his wife. Vince Gill's story begins far from the bright lights of Nashville, in the quiet town of Norman, Oklahoma, where he was born on April 12, 1957. Norman was a place where family values ran deep and where music was woven into everyday life. Vince's father, a lawyer by trade, had a deep passion for music, one that he passed down to his son from an early age. While his professional life might have been spent in courtrooms, his true love was in the strings of a guitar or the twang of a banjo. It was through his father's encouragement that Vince discovered the instruments that would eventually define his life. By the time he was just a boy, Vince had already begun learning to play guitar, banjo, mandolin, and even dobro, showing an eagerness and natural ability that made it clear he was meant for more than a small-town stage. As a teenager, Vince immersed himself in bluegrass and country rock, genres that carried the soul of America's heartland. He gravitated toward bands like Flat and Scruggs and admired the way their harmonies could move people. It wasn't long before he started playing in local groups, testing out his talents on small stages and church halls. Unlike many kids his age, Vince wasn't just dabbling in music for fun. He was honing a craft, devoting long hours to perfecting his playing and sharpening his clear tenor voice. Those around him saw something special, something that went beyond just talent. He had the rare combination of technical skill and emotional depth, even as a teenager. After graduating high school, Vince faced a daunting decision of where his life would go next. For many, the path was straightforward: college, a steady job, maybe staying close to home. But Vince was different. His dream was Nashville, the beating heart of country music. He packed up his instruments and set off, chasing an uncertain future. Nashville, however, was not the welcoming city of dreams he had imagined. The competition was fierce, opportunity scarce, and the path to success filled with rejection and setbacks. Vince played wherever he could, tiny clubs, backup gigs, session work. It wasn't glamorous, and there were plenty of nights where it seemed like the dream might fade away. Yet, what kept him going was the voice inside him that said he was meant for this life, meant to tell stories through music. The turning point came in the late 1970s when Vince was invited to join the country rock band Pure Prairie League. It was a chance that would finally put him in front of a larger audience. As the band's new frontman, Vince's voice soared on their hit, Let Me Love You Tonight, a song that would climb the charts and introduce him to the mainstream. Fans instantly connected with the sincerity in his singing, and industry insiders began to recognize his versatility as a musician. He wasn't just another singer. He was a kind of artist who could make any song feel personal. For Vince, joining Pure Prairie League was both validation and foreshadowing. He had finally broken through, proving to himself and to the industry that he belonged on the stage. Yet with every success came new pressures, new sacrifices, and a lifestyle that would test not only his endurance, but also his personal relationships. Fame was beginning to grow, and with it came the promise of more opportunities and greater challenges. What Vince didn't yet realize was that while music would always be his guiding star, his personal life was about to take center stage in ways he could never have anticipated. His journey was just beginning, but already the balance between love, family, and fame was quietly shifting beneath his feet. In the late 1970s, Los Angeles was a magnet for dreamers, and among them were two young musicians who would soon find each other in a way that seemed almost destined. Vince Gill had landed in the city chasing his musical ambitions, carrying with him a small-town heart and a suitcase full of instruments. At the same time, Janis Oliver, alongside her sister Christine, was carving out a path of her own in country music. The sisters would go on to form the duo Sweethearts of the Rodeo, a group known for their tight harmonies and infectious energy. Janis had the same restless fire Vince did, the same willingness to gamble on a dream that had no guarantee. When Vince and Janis met, it was less about sparks flying in a dramatic Hollywood way and more about finding a kindred spirit. They were both young, ambitious, and deeply rooted in music. Their connection was immediate, built on long talks about their hopes, countless nights of watching each other perform, and a quiet understanding that they were walking the same road. In each other, they found not just love, but companionship in the unpredictable world of the music business. It didn't take long for their romance to deepen, and in 1980, they exchanged vows, promising to build a life together that would somehow balance marriage and the pursuit of music. The early years of their marriage were marked by both love and determination. Vince's career was slowly building momentum, while Janis and her sister were gaining recognition for their unique sound. Together, Vince and Janis decided to leave behind Los Angeles and head for Nashville, the place where country dreams either flourished or faded away. The move was a leap of faith, but one they believed in wholeheartedly. Nashville was not an easy city for newcomers, but as a couple, they leaned on each other, facing the uncertainty together. In 1982, their family grew when Janis gave birth to their daughter, Jenny. For Vince, fatherhood brought a new dimension to his life. Jenny became the center of his world, a grounding force amid the whirlwind of a career that was starting to demand more of his time. Janis, too, embraced motherhood while continuing her musical journey. To outsiders, they looked like the perfect country music couple. Young, talented, attractive, raising a family in the heart of Nashville while chasing their dreams. They appear to embody the fairy tale, love, music, and family all wrapped into one. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. The life of a touring musician is not an easy one, and Vince's star was beginning to rise in ways that demanded sacrifices. The long stretches on the road, the recording sessions that bled into late nights, and the relentless pursuit of success began to take their toll. Janis had her own career pressures, balancing her role in Sweethearts of the Rodeo with being a mother and a wife to a man whose fame was on the upswing. The demands of their separate careers sometimes left them ships passing in the night, two people in love but often apart. Their story during these years wasn't one of dramatic scandal or public feuds, but a quiet erosion that often happens when two ambitious lives run on parallel tracks. Vince poured himself into music, driven by the desire to make the most of his talents, while Janis shouldered the weight of being both a performer and the stabilizing presence at home. The distance between them wasn't always measured in miles, but in the slow drift of two people pulled in different directions. Still, during those early years, they managed to hold together, presenting the picture of a strong couple to the world. They attended events side by side, supported each other's careers, and focused on raising Jenny in a home filled with love and music. Yet even then, the pressures of fame and the relentless chase of success were laying the groundwork for challenges that neither of them could fully anticipate. What began in Los Angeles as a love story between two dreamers would soon be tested in the glare of the Nashville spotlight, where personal sacrifice often came hand in hand with professional triumph. The 1980s were a proving ground for Vince Gill, a decade defined by persistence, frustration, and the slow climb toward recognition. After leaving Pure Prairie League, Vince turned his attention to building a solo career and signed with RCA Records. It was a dream on paper, the chance to carve his own identity as a country artist, but the reality proved tougher than he expected. The albums he released under RCA, including Turn Me Loose and The Way Back Home, showcased his talent and versatility, yet none of them catapulted him into stardom. Critics admired his clean tenor voice, and fellow musicians respected his skill as a guitarist and songwriter, but chart-topping success remained elusive. For much of the 1980s, Vince was a respected presence in Nashville, but not yet the household name he longed to become. That all changed in 1989, when Vince signed with MCA Records and released When I Call Your Name. The title track, a soaring ballad filled with longing and heartbreak, resonated deeply with audiences. Vince's tender delivery and emotional authenticity struck a chord that the industry could no longer ignore. The song became a hit, earning him a Grammy Award for Best Country Vocal Performance, Male, and finally gave him the breakthrough he'd been working toward for over a decade. Suddenly, Vince Gill was not just another Nashville hopeful. He was a rising star whose voice was unmistakable. The 1990s were Vince's golden years, a time when his career skyrocketed. Album after album delivered both critical acclaim and commercial success. Songs like I Still Believe in You, One More Last Chance, and Don't Let Our Love Start Slip Away dominated the country charts, while Go Rest High on That Mountain became one of the most poignant tributes ever written, inspired by the death of his brother Bob and the passing of fellow musician Keith Whitley. The song earned him multiple awards and cemented his reputation as not only a gifted singer, but also a songwriter unafraid to bare his soul. Audiences connected with Vince because he didn't just sing songs, he lived them. The industry took notice in a big way. Vince won 22 Grammy Awards over the course of his career, with many of those victories coming in the 1990s. He also earned the coveted title of CMA Male Vocalist of the Year 5 times in a row, a feat that underscored his dominance in the genre. His ability to blend traditional country sounds with heartfelt ballads made him both a critical darling and a fan favorite. At the height of his fame, Vince Gill wasn't just a country star. He was one of the most recognizable voices in all of American music. But with that fame came the inevitable pressures that test even the strongest of marriages. Success meant constant touring, long stretches away from home, and the unrelenting demand to stay in the spotlight. Vince's schedule was grueling, leaving little time for the quiet, ordinary moments that sustain a family. Janis, balancing her own career with sweethearts of the rodeo and the responsibilities of raising their daughter Jenny, found herself increasingly alone in the day-to-day rhythm of life. While Vince was charming audiences across the country, at home, the distance between husband and wife was quietly widening. To the outside world, Vince Gill's life seemed charmed. He was racking up awards, performing on the biggest stages, and earning the respect of peers and fans alike. But behind closed doors, the cracks in his marriage to Janis were beginning to deepen. The very success that Vince had dreamed of and worked toward for so long was creating a strain on the foundation of his family life. It was a cruel irony. The more the world embraced him, the harder it became to hold on to the intimacy and stability of his marriage. By the end of the decade, Vince Gill stood tall as one of country music's brightest stars. Yet even as the applause grew louder, the silence at home became harder to ignore. His journey as a musician had reached its pinnacle, but as a husband, he was beginning to face challenges that fame and talent alone could not overcome. The rise of Vince Gill the superstar came hand in hand with the unraveling of Vince Gill the husband, setting the stage for a painful chapter that would change his life forever. By the 1990s, Vince Gill was standing at the pinnacle of his career. His voice was a fixture on country radio. His albums were selling by the millions, and he had become one of the most decorated artists in the industry. On stage, everything looked perfect: the awards, the standing ovations, the adoration of fans. But away from the spotlight, life was far more complicated. His marriage to Janis Oliver, which had once seemed like a storybook union between two musicians chasing their dreams, was quietly coming apart. The strains that had been building for years were now impossible to ignore. Vince's schedule was relentless. Concerts, tours, recording sessions, award shows, interviews. The constant pull of his career meant he was often away from home for long stretches, leaving Janis to balance her own music career with the demands of raising their daughter, Jenny. What had once been an exciting adventure, two young artists carving out their place in the world, had turned into a routine of separations and missed moments. The emotional distance between them grew with every passing year, fueled not by a lack of love, but by the sheer difficulty of sustaining a marriage under the weight of fame. For Vince, the stage offered both triumph and escape. He could pour his emotions into his music, connecting with audiences in ways that made him feel alive. But when the shows were over and the lights dimmed, the reality of a marriage under strain was waiting. For Janis, the challenge was different but just as heavy. She was a performer in her own right with Sweethearts of the Rodeo, but she was also the steady presence at home, ensuring that Jenny had a stable childhood while her father was often thousands of miles away. Their lives were intertwined yet separate, two careers pulling them in opposite directions. By 1997, after 17 years together, the marriage could no longer withstand the pressures. Vince and Janis divorced, a painful but inevitable conclusion to a partnership that had been tested beyond its limits. Unlike many celebrity splits, theirs was not marred by public scandal or bitter accusations. Vince, true to his nature, has always spoken respectfully of Janis. He never sought to place blame or air grievances, instead choosing to acknowledge that sometimes even love isn't enough to bridge the gap created by ambition, distance, and time. At the center of their story was Jenny, their daughter, who remained their shared priority. Both Vince and Janis made sure that she never became a casualty of their divorce. Jenny grew up surrounded by music, inheriting the gift that defined both her parents' lives. Today, she is a singer-songwriter in Nashville, carrying forward the Gill legacy with her own voice and perspective. Vince has often expressed his pride in her, a testament to the enduring bond that he and Janis shared as parents, even after their marriage ended. The end of Vince's first marriage was a turning point. It revealed the human cost of success, a reminder that the applause of millions cannot always make up for the silence at home. For fans, it was easy to see the glamorous side of Vince's career. The Grammys, the #1 hits, the accolades from the Country Music Association. What was harder to see was the toll that such a career takes on the most personal aspects of life. The collapse of his marriage to Janis was not about betrayal or scandal, but about the difficulty of holding together two lives stretched by ambition and circumstance. Looking back, Vince has framed that period of his life not with regret, but with honesty. He acknowledges the challenges and the pain, but he also recognizes the role it played in shaping who he became. Sometimes success in public life comes at the cost of private happiness, and for Vince Gill, the 1990s embodied both extremes. On one hand, he was celebrated as one of country music's greatest voices. On the other, he was navigating the quiet heartbreak of a marriage slipping away. It was a duality that would define him for years to come and ultimately set the stage for the next chapter of his life, one that would bring new love, new challenges, and a renewed sense of purpose. In the mid-1990s, Vince Gill's life was in the midst of profound change. His career had reached incredible heights, but personally, he was still grappling with the collapse of his marriage to Janis Oliver. It was during this period, in 1993, that he met someone who would change the course of his life forever, Amy Grant. The two first crossed paths during a Christmas television special, a festive program filled with holiday music and cheer. At the time, Amy was one of the biggest stars in Christian music, admired for her angelic voice and wholesome image. Vince, already known as one of country's most soulful singers, was brought in to perform, and the collaboration left a lasting impression on both of them. At the time of that first meeting, Amy was still married to Christian musician Gary Chapman. Vince was still married to Janis, though their relationship was straining under the pressures of his success and time on the road. Yet, even within the boundaries of those existing marriages, Vince and Amy found themselves drawn to one another in a way that felt undeniable. It wasn't a romance at first. It was something subtler, a deep friendship born from shared experiences, shared faith, and the unique pressures of living in the public eye. Both Vince and Amy carried burdens. Vince was struggling with the emotional fallout of his crumbling marriage, while Amy was navigating difficulties in her own relationship. Their friendship became a safe harbor. They bonded over their children, over the ways music had shaped their lives, and over their mutual desire to find peace and purpose amidst the chaos of fame. For years, they remained in one another's orbit, always close, always supportive, but careful not to cross lines. By 1997, Vince's marriage to Janis had officially ended, and in 1999, Amy's marriage to Gary Chapman also came to a close after 16 years. Suddenly, both of them were free, and what had once been a quiet friendship began to bloom into something more. Their closeness quickly became apparent, and soon enough, the rumors began swirling. In Nashville and beyond, whispers followed them. Some critics accused them of starting their relationship too soon. Others questioned whether their union was built to last. The scrutiny was intense, particularly for Amy, whose career had been built around Christian audiences who often viewed her divorce with disappointment. Despite the controversy, Vince and Amy held steady. They didn't lash out or make grand statements. Instead, they simply leaned into the relationship, letting their actions speak louder than any rumor ever could. For Vince, Amy represented a chance to begin again, a partner who not only understood his life as a performer, but who also shared his spiritual values and his devotion to family. For Amy, Vince was a man who showed kindness, steadiness, and unwavering support during a time when her world felt unsettled. Their love story culminated in March 2000, when Vince and Amy married in a private ceremony. The union wasn't just about two people starting over. It was about the blending of two families. Vince's daughter Jenny, still a teenager, suddenly had 3 new step-siblings from Amy's first marriage. The adjustment wasn't always easy. Blending families never is. But Vince and Amy approached it with patience and care. They emphasized unity, love, and the importance of building a home where all the children felt safe and valued. As the years went on, the outside voices that once criticized their relationship began to fade. Fans and friends could see what was undeniable. Their love was real, rooted in respect and deep connection. Amy became Vince's partner not only in life, but also in faith and music, often joining him on stage for performances that radiated warmth and authenticity. Meeting Amy Grant was not just the beginning of a new marriage for Vince Gill. It was the beginning of a new chapter defined by stability, devotion, and renewal. After years of chasing fame and grappling with the collapse of his first marriage, Vince had finally found the person who grounded him. What started as a friendship during a Christmas special had grown into a lifelong partnership, one that continues to inspire fans who see in Vince and Amy not perfection, but perseverance, the courage to begin again, even after heartbreak. For Vince Gill, music has always been more than just a career. It has been a refuge, a way of processing life's most difficult moments and celebrating its most beautiful ones. Every stage of his journey, from the triumphs to the heartbreaks, has found its way into a song. Fans don't just listen to Vince Gill, they feel him, because he has never been afraid to put his own soul into the notes he sings. His story of love and loss, particularly in the years after meeting Amy Grant, only deepened that connection between his life and his art. One of the most beloved songs in Vince's catalog is Whenever You Come Around. Released in 1994, it became a country classic and is widely believed to have been inspired by Amy Grant, even before the two officially became a couple. The lyrics speak of love so profound it leaves a person weak in its presence, and the way Vince delivers it, gentle, trembling, filled with awe, made fans wonder what touched them so deeply. Years later, it became clear that Amy was the muse behind the music, the woman who had stirred emotions so strong they demanded expression in song. Even today, when Vince performs it live with Amy off in the audience, the emotion is palpable, as the song still captures the awe he feels for her presence in his life. But not all of Vince's most famous songs came from joy. In fact, one of his greatest contributions to country music was born out of devastating loss. Go Rest High on That Mountain, released in 1995, was a song Vince began writing years earlier after the death of fellow country star Keith Whitley. At first, he couldn't bring himself to finish it. The grief was too raw, the words too heavy. But when his brother Bob passed away in 1993, Vince returned to the unfinished song and poured his sorrow into it. The result was one of the most moving tributes ever written, a ballad that not only honored those he had lost, but also became a source of healing for millions who heard it. The song won multiple Grammy Awards and became a staple at funerals, memorial services, and moments of remembrance, far beyond the world of country music. Every time Vince sings it, his voice carries the weight of personal pain, making the song feel as raw and relevant as the day it was written. Through songs like these, Vince showed that music wasn't just about chart success or industry accolades. It was about healing for himself and for others. And when he and Amy married, they found in each other a partner who shared that same belief. Both had lived through broken marriages and personal struggles, and both leaned on their faith to find meaning in the challenges. Their home together became one built not just on love, but on the conviction that music could be a force for good, a way of ministering to people without preaching, of offering comfort without judgment. Vince and Amy often blended their musical worlds, performing together at concerts, church events, and charity benefits. Their harmonies were more than just musical. They reflected the harmony of their lives, two voices complementing each other in ways that felt effortless and natural. Audiences who saw them perform could sense the sincerity in their connection. The way Vince looked at Amy while singing, or the way Amy's voice softened when she joined him. They weren't just partners on stage. They were partners in every sense of the word. As their marriage matured, family and faith remained their highest priorities. Vince's daughter, Jenny, grew up alongside Amy's 3 children, and eventually, Vince and Amy welcomed their own child together, Karina. The blended family faced the normal challenges of combining households, but Vince and Amy approached those challenges with patience and devotion, always striving to create a space where love outweighed division. Music often played a role in that, with family gatherings filled with songs and laughter, reminding everyone that while life could be difficult, it could also be healing. Vince Gill's artistry has always been a reflection of his heart, and in Amy, he found someone who shared that same calling. Together, they became living proof that music can be more than entertainment. It can be a balm for wounds, a celebration of love, and a reminder that even in grief, beauty can emerge. Songs like Whenever You Come Around and Go Rest High on That Mountain are not just hits in his catalog. They are chapters of his life, shaped by love and loss, and transformed into gifts he shared with the world. Through them, Vince and Amy remind us that healing doesn't always come quickly, but when it comes to music, it has the power to last forever. By the time Vince Gill entered his later career years, he had already secured his place as one of country music's greatest voices. Yet instead of slowing down, he continued to build upon his legacy, finding new avenues for creativity, while also embracing the role of husband, father, and partner in ways that revealed even more about his character. His journey through the 2000s and beyond was marked by triumphs on stage, personal challenges at home, and ultimately, a deeper appreciation for things that truly matter. Musically, Vince remained unstoppable. The awards that had defined his career in the 1990s continued into the next decades. By now, he had collected more Grammy Awards than any other male country artist, a testament to both his artistry and his versatility. He collaborated with some of the biggest names in music, from Dolly Parton to Alison Krauss to Reba McEntire, seamlessly blending his smooth tenor with voices across genres. His humility made him the kind of artist everyone wanted to work with, and his reputation as a musician's musician only grew stronger with time. In 2007, Vince received one of the highest honors in country music, induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame. It was a moment of reflection as much as celebration. For the boy from Norman, Oklahoma, who once struggled to find his footing in Nashville, this recognition was a validation of decades of dedication. Standing on that stage, Vince was not just a superstar, but also a symbol of perseverance, showing that hard work, kindness, and authenticity can indeed pave the way to lasting success. But even as he celebrated his own achievements, Vince continued to step into unexpected roles. One of the most surprising chapters of his career came in 2016, when the legendary rock band the Eagles invited him to join after the passing of Glenn Frey. The decision was bold. How could anyone fill the shoes of such an iconic figure? Yet Vince did not try to replace Frey. Instead, he approached the role with reverence and respect, lending his voice and guitar skills to honor the Eagles' legacy while helping keep their music alive for a new generation. Fans praised his contributions, noting how naturally he fit into the band's harmonies and how gracefully he balanced honoring the past with carrying the music forward. While Vince's career thrived, life at home brought its share of trials. Amy Grant, his beloved wife, faced two major health crises that tested the strength of their marriage. In 2020, she underwent open-heart surgery to repair a rare congenital condition known as partial anomalous pulmonary venous return. The news stunned fans, as Amy had always been seen as a beacon of health and vitality. Throughout the ordeal, Vince remained steadfast, offering public words of encouragement and private devotion. He made it clear that music and fame meant little compared to Amy's well-being, and his priority was standing by her side as she recovered. Just 2 years later, in 2022, Amy faced another frightening moment when she suffered a serious bicycle accident that left her with a traumatic brain injury. The recovery was slow and challenging, requiring months of rest and rehabilitation. Once again, Vince became her rock. He stepped into a caretaker role, often speaking to fans with honesty about her progress and his gratitude for prayers and support pouring in from around the world. For those who admired Vince and Amy as a couple, these moments crystallized the depth of their bond. It wasn't just about romance or celebrity. It was about commitment, loyalty, and walking through life's storms together. Fans who had once speculated about the beginnings of their relationship now saw the proof of its authenticity in these trials. Vince didn't shy away from the difficulties, and Amy leaned on the man who had become not only her partner, but her protector. Their marriage, forged in love and shaped by faith, became a living testimony to the vows they had made, for better or worse in sickness and in health. These years show that Vince Gill's story is not just one of musical triumphs, but also of personal devotion. His Grammy wins, his Hall of Fame induction, and his time with the Eagles added to his professional legacy. But it was his unwavering support for Amy during her health battles that revealed his truest character. For Vince, success has never been about the spotlight. It has been about the people he loves. And in standing by Amy's side, he showed fans that what really defines a marriage is not how it begins, but how it endures through life's hardest moments. At 68 years old, Vince Gill stands as a man who has lived a life both extraordinary and profoundly human. When he speaks now about his past, there's a tone of calm reflection, not regret. The once young boy from Norman, Oklahoma, who fell in love with guitar, has become one of the most respected figures in country music. But beyond the accolades, Vince has also become a man who understands the value of love in all its complicated forms, and how every chapter of his personal story shaped the person he is today. When he looks back on his first marriage to Janis Oliver, Vince does so with respect and gratitude. He rarely, if ever, speaks negatively about her, despite the fact that their relationship ended after 17 years. To Vince, those years were not failures. They were part of his journey. Together, they raised a daughter, Jenny, who has gone on to carve her own path in music. For both Vince and Janis, Jenny remained the center of their shared commitment. And even as the marriage dissolved, their role as parents bound them together. Vince has often acknowledged that the pressures of his rising career put strain on their marriage, but he never casts blame. Instead, he acknowledges that sometimes life pulls people in different directions. For him, Janis was not just a former spouse, but someone who played an integral role in his story, someone who walked beside him during some of his most formative years. In Amy Grant, Vince found the partner he had been searching for all along. Their marriage, now more than 2 decades strong, is a testament to love built on friendship, faith, and mutual respect. What started as a friendship in the mid-1990s has blossomed into a union that has weathered public scrutiny, blended families, and health challenges. Vince often speaks about Amy with tenderness, not as a superstar but as a love of his life. Someone who steadies him, inspires him, and shares his deepest values. Their relationship is not painted as perfect, but as enduring, something that has lasted because they chose each other over and over again, even when life tested them. At 68, Vince is not a man clinging to the past or haunted by what might have been. Instead, he reflects with a sense of gratitude. He has known the pain of loss, in losing his brother, in seeing a marriage end, in standing beside Amy through her health battles, but he has also known the beauty of resilience. His life is proof that endings do not have to be filled with bitterness. They can be the beginning of something new. Vince's story is not one of scandal or betrayal, as some might have speculated, but of the natural evolution of life. His first marriage gave him a daughter and years of shared memories. His second marriage gave him a partner who shares his faith and passions. Both shaped him into the man he is today. When fans ask what really happened with his first marriage, Vince's reflections offer the clearest answer. What happened was simply life. Life with all its unexpected turns, its heartbreaks, and its chances for renewal. For Vince, the journey was never about perfection, but about staying true to himself and to the people he loved. His legacy, then, is not just found in the countless awards on his shelf or the timeless songs he's written, but in the way he has carried himself through personal struggles with humility and grace. As he enters this stage of his life, Vince Gill remains both a legend of country music and a man at peace with his past. His songs continue to heal, his voice continues to inspire, and his life continues to serve as a reminder that love, even when it changes shape, is always worth the risk. At 68, Vince Gill has finally explained what really happened to his wife, and the truth is far more meaningful than gossip or rumor. It is a story of two marriages, each important in its own way, and a life defined not by scandal but by love, resilience, and the quiet grace of a man who kept his heart open to every chapter. From the beginning, Vince Gill's life is read like a ballad. Tender, heartbreaking, triumphant, and deeply human. Born in Norman, Oklahoma, he was just a small-town boy who picked up a guitar and never let go. Those early days, guided by his father's encouragement and his own hunger to master instruments like the banjo, mandolin, and dobro, laid the foundation for a career that would one day make him one of country music's most beloved voices. As he moved from garage bands to pure Prairie League, and then onto the stages of Nashville, Vince's star began to rise. The man with the soulful tenor voice became a superstar in the 1990s, winning Grammy after Grammy and writing songs that touched millions. When I Call Your Name, I Still Believe in You, and Go Rest High on That Mountain didn't just chart. They became lifelines for listeners who found their own stories in his words. Yet behind the music, Vince was also living through chapters that were as difficult as they were defining. His marriage to Janis Oliver seemed like a fairy tale at first. Two musicians in love, raising a daughter while building careers in Nashville. But fame is rarely kind to marriages. The long tours, the demands of success, and the quiet emotional distance that grew between them led to the end of their 17-year union. Still, Vince never spoke ill of Janis. Instead, he honored the years they shared and the daughter, Jenny, who became a bright legacy of their time together. When Amy Grant entered his life, it marked the beginning of something entirely new. Their relationship was not without controversy, but over the years it proved itself to be authentic, steady, and rooted in faith. Together they blended families, navigated hardships, and found joy in making music side by side. Amy's health battles in recent years revealed the truest measure of their bond. Vince standing faithfully by her side, offering not just words but unwavering presence. Their love became a living example of what it means to keep vows, to endure and to cherish. At 68, Vince Gill speaks about his past with honesty and grace. There is no bitterness in his reflections, only gratitude for Janis, for Amy, for lessons of heartbreak, and the gift of renewal. His story is not one of scandal but of growth, a reminder that life is rarely linear, and that love often comes in chapters. He has been a son, a husband, a father, a widower in spirit after losses, and a partner who chose to keep moving forward. And so the real story of Vince Gill is this: a man who took the joys and sorrows of life and turned them into music that still resonates today. His legacy is not just written in awards or records, but in the grace with which he has carried himself through love and loss. At 68, Vince Gill finally explains what really happened with his wife. First Janis, then Amy, is a story of change, of moving forward, and of finding peace. And in the end, that's the greatest song he's ever written.